Joining us now is journalist and NewsNation contributor Lindsey to talk more about Musk's influence the last few months and moving forward. Good morning to you, Lindsey, as always. Elon Musk told the Washington Post this week that the federal bureaucracy situation is much worse than he realized. What didn't he accomplish with DOGE that he had hoped for?
Well, Elon Musk came in with the idea pitching that he was going to cut $2 trillion initially from the deficit and then brought that down to $1 trillion. And then his own estimates that critics do still argue against is about $150 billion. So those numbers dropped dramatically in just a short amount of months. I also think what people are understanding that work alongside Trump's team and DOGE know that, you can't skip over congressional approval to get things like this done. And so a big sticking point, which we're seeing Marjorie Taylor Greene bringing up just this week, is that why do we not have these actual laws passed properly through Congress if we want these cuts to stick and be permanent? And so I think what he's seeing right now is simultaneously with the spending bill, the big, beautiful bill on the back of all these cuts that he was touting as a major accomplishment by being somewhat of a consultant to government, knowing that everything that he worked on could be peeled back is problematic for him. But I think more importantly, it's problematic for the American people that were part of those people that were considered waste, fraud, or even abuse, like the veteran that I interviewed a few months ago that talked about being one of the people that was a federal employee that was cut. His job was lost when DOGE did the cuts, and he felt that his job was very significant. So to see that a bill may pass through at the same time that he no longer has a job, a bill that will protect tax cuts, but also expand the deficit, is going to be problematic to all those voters that are looking towards the midterm and thought they were going to get change immediately.
And how much pressure, then, does this put on the cabinet members in Trump's administration to continue to look for waste, fraud, and abuse? Or do we see that slowing down?
No, that was a huge applause point during the campaign season. Every time, even when Elon Musk came out with the chainsaw, or every time Trump brought up cutting spending, I think Americans did want to see it happen. But what happens with this is that the follow through has to be there. And so with Elon Musk leaving, going back to his private companies, people want to know what the next steps look like and what implementation looks like long term, because they had lofty goals for 2026 that likely will not be hit. But what does this look like long term, especially if the next leader of the country is a Democratic candidate? Does DOGE then go away? Was all this for nothing? And I know while many of the implementations from DOGE are stuck in lawsuits after lawsuit, so they actually have not been implemented to their full degree, people want to just know how effective it all will be when it's all said and done, and what will actually be final and what will go back to how it was prior to Trump taking office.
Elon Musk doesn't seem to shy away from when he disagrees with the president or anyone else for that matter. He is frustrated or disappointed, I guess was his word, when it came to the big, beautiful bill and raising the deficit. It seems as though some Republicans in the Senate share that same concern. Does his voice on that matter carry any weight as the Senate considers the bill?
Well, there are fiscal conservatives that strongly disagree with the bill, which is why people like Rand Paul in the Senate are saying, I will shut it down immediately if we don't figure out how to get this deficit under wraps. But I think for Elon Musk, he has a different stake in the game. The Department of Government Efficiency is his legacy. It's his first entryway in a real position in government where he can tout that he made major change in that sector, as well as all the major monumental business things he's done in the private sector. And I think to have this be something that people could write about in history books as a possible failure or a wash because of how much the same government officials or the cabinet members then spent on the back of him making all these cuts could be problematic, and it could feel a little bit deflating for Elon Musk, who some critics say are leaving Washington almost with his tail tucked when he came in as one of the most powerful outsiders.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.